do it. Good evening and welcome to our council meeting this October the 28th, 2024. We'll call this meeting to order. We're going to start out with our invocation by Councilman Reeves, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. If you would, please stand with me.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this night, and we thank you for the opportunity to serve our community, Father. And we ask that you give us wisdom and insight on everything that we do, Father, and that would always glorify you and serve you the way we should, Father. And Father, we thank you for that Son that died on that cross and shed that blood for us to save our souls. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We're going to set the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I need a entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Ms. Shoemaker, second by Mr. Reeves. All in favor? Motion carries. There are 7 items on the consent agenda. I need to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Huff and Mr. Craig, all in favor? Motion passes. We're going to go into our presentations. The Belmont Rowing Club, Debbie Brown and Sarah Macy. Thank you for being here, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us tonight. Get this queued up. All right. I am Sarah Macy.
Hi, I'm Debbie Brown.
We're thankful to be here to just meet with y'all and let you know a little bit about our organization, Belmont Rowing Center. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We were established a bit over 10 years ago in 2013. And currently we are operating out of Riverside Marina. So that is on River Road down in Belmont, down the river a bit from here. We got our website up there, reference, if you want to learn a little bit more about us after this meeting. But we have about 30 boats in our fleet, and annually we are working with 30 rowers. So we've got our participation numbers there, but those include a cross-section of youth, which are, as young as the age of 12, but predominantly high school aged, as well as adults. So that's where that master's team that says about 40. Then we do introductory events, which we call Learn to Row, and then other events within the community. So those numbers are year over year. That may average up and down, but about 100 different unique individuals a year. We're led by all volunteers. Debbie and I are both on the board. Got Dan, which is also rows with us, is here this evening. But everything pretty much is run on a volunteer basis. We do have our coaching staff that are our only paid team members. And we just went through a process last year and updated a strategic plan. So as part of that, we established a new mission and vision statement, which is a refinement of our focus, but that we really exist to promote the sport of rowing through educational, competitive, and inclusive programs. So, core to what we're doing is hopefully fostering a love of the river and of the sport, but being able to engage individuals, especially from a youth perspective, and learning this new sport and engaging all members of our community and trying to reduce those barriers to access wherever and however we can do that. Right now, we've got aspirations of where we'd like to be in the future. That longer term goal is that we'd be the premier rowing center in the Carolinas, but we want to be realistic about that. So we gave ourselves a little bit of a shorter term vision there as well, to give us some milestones and some points to work towards on that effort. But we want to continue to prove our value to our community through our rowers, our coaches, and make sure that we can enable sustainability and growth so that we can dig in and do the work. We've identified some priorities that we've been working on to be able to do that better, but then just continue to grow and encourage and foster the love of the sport that we love. A little bit about our programs. The Learn to Row is what we call for folks that have no idea what rowing is. Like, they might know it's something about a boat, so we start with them indoors on an erg or a machine that kind of simulates that motion of what would happen on the water, and then get folks out on learning how to pick up a boat. You see that picture on the far right there of like how you get it from the racks down into the river and then actually get on the river and get a taste of what that is over a 3-day period. From there, if we've piqued an interest, we do developmental programs. We often will call that DEVO, but that's where you can kind of grow your skills, get fostered, one-on-one coaching, and also row with other individuals. And from a youth perspective, we've got usually are having those youth teams compete in about 3 regattas on average a season. So we've got seasons that run in the spring and then run in the fall for several months, but being able to kind of grow their skills, and then as well as for our adults also being able to participate in those regattas. You see some of our adults in the middle there proudly wearing their medals that they had won and brought home from a recent competition as well. We also do private lessons, so those will be one-on-one lessons for folks that may have rowed at some point in their life or want to refamiliarize it before joining a team, or are brand new to the sport and want to learn in that type of environment instead of more of that group team environment. Over the summer, we'll host summer camps, so those can be like week-long camps. Some of those might be first-time introductions, and some of those might be just kind of continuing over the summer. In the winter, when it gets too cold to get on the water, or the hours are a little bit dark in the evenings, we'll do indoor rowing. So creating that fitness and technique growing and building at that time. Some of our special programs that we offer, ROAR is an acronym for Rowing for Active Recovery. So that's for cancer patients and survivors, kind of focus team so that we can accommodate to their special needs, physical, emotional, and just kind of getting more active again in that recovery process. And continue to try and do more and more events with local partners. Do one with youth in the summer called Rowing and Robotics, where it combines like a robotics camp and rowing, or aligned organization like Row House in Charlotte that predominantly is doing indoor fitness activities, exposing them to on-the-water activities and other introductory events, just trying to get to know the community. So in that mission and vision in our strategic plan, really trying to identify like how we continue to provide value and understanding what our individual rowers or our community may find and value in us as an organization. We really want to increase access and understanding of our waterways in the Catawba River and have an on-water recreation opportunity. And that rowing is a unique fitness choice. That's a way that you can stay fit mentally and physically in an outdoor environment, and make ourselves visible with outdoor classes, camps, teams, and events. And that local businesses that we're between our rowers and our parents and our training teams, and we've got our eye on that longer term vision, being able to host regattas and being able to bring other communities here to our area as well. And we, especially recently, I think we all know how important river stewardship is and how much that can impact us as individuals and as a community, and being part of that, of really understanding our waterways together. And we've partnered over time and continuing to partner with college teams. There's a lot of universities and climates that aren't as mild as ours, and so when they're getting geared up in the spring, being able to have them come and use our river and our facilities as a way to get training on water before it's too cold in their areas. And really wanting to continue to grow the cross-section of inclusivity, any way you look at that, whether it's race, size, age, economic background, how are the ways that we can bring everyone together around this sport. And then individual rower benefits, especially with our youth, looking at scholarship opportunities, being able to, see this as a pathway to an athletic scholarship, continuing their development. And really, we heard this a lot doing our strategic planning process with kind of our engagement of parents last year as well. It's kind of that skill development, that ability to overcome obstacles and perseverance, developing grit and that kind of that learning mindset. Being able to grow leadership and teamwork together. We definitely see that in action with our youth team, but also in our adults that enter from all different stages of their life and progression to be able to support one another on and off the water. So, what are those personal health and fitness goals? How do we continue to do that? And then again, strength, endurance, and overall, improved health. So as part of that strategic planning process, we came up with these strategic priorities that then are helping us guide our actions of what we're doing and help us improve our overall operation. So what we found as paramount as the outcome of that process is to ensure the success of our program. So that means what we're offering as those classes, on water, off water opportunities, we are operating in terms of as an organization in a professional way, that we're trying to, by one, creating a strategic plan, but then holding ourselves to that, holding ourselves accountable, and being able to further us as an organization. Maintaining our nonprofit status as a 501c3, so ensuring that we are committed to our, educational programs, to our youth, and continuing to take advantage of those opportunities that will allow the organization and our community to grow with that. That we're responsible stewards, and we've got a financially sustainability in terms of how we're developing our programs, how we're managing all of our resources, that we continue to do a good job there and continue to try and further us as a group so that we can continue to grow. And that, physical assets and safety are kind of non-negotiables, that, that those are must-haves, must-do, and we must stay focused on those to ensure everyone stays safe, whether that's in their equipment or how we're operating and how we're putting folks out on the water. And again, that's been another trying over the last month or so, navigating, water is a dynamic environment, even more so when you operate on dammed waterways. And then one of the pieces we're also working on, and Debbie's been helping us lead, is establishing a permanent home for our facilities. So we have operated in a few areas in the greater Charlotte region. Where we are in Belmont right now is a temporary facility, so we're operating in a rental situation of where we are currently. So as we think about, new locations, potential synergies, is Mount Holly a future home where we could operate out of? We would love to be able to create a relationship with a community that values recreation, education, and river stewardship, kind of aligning some of those key values of us as an organization. You saw some of those earlier photos, the way we get into from where the boats are on a rack and into the water, easy access to get from land to into water is an important piece. So having a good pathway there and parking to be able to think about how do you accommodate a growing number of participants on a regular basis, but maybe host some of those larger events, whether those are other rowing organizations in the region or universities. And this part of the river is gorgeous. I was up here Saturday morning underneath the bridges, right down the street. There's just like low boat traffic, very calm waters, makes it safe when you're in a non-motorized boat, being in a good environment there. And in an area where there's a lot of high traffic, there's lots of people in the community, being able to kind of just have that visibility and interaction with others. Here we're looking at the YMCA and downtown traffic, and then kind of continuing, a thriving, growing area and community. And being able to attract a local population, how do we grow and get more people engaged, not only in our core rowing programs, but what are those other things that we can do as community partners, as river stewards, as community resources, helping one another. And, we are very interested in being able to continue to host high school invitationals, college teams, regattas, being able to bring others outside of our immediate area, to be able to bring those into our region here. And as we kind of looked at some of the synergies and looked at the what Mount Holly had done in the 2018 plan, we just saw some overlap there. We just wanted to kind of bring out, we don't know necessarily if these are still, as 2018 to today, there's a little thing I think that happened in 2020 that may have pivoted some of those priorities along the way. But knowing that, trying to embrace the Catawba as a natural amenity, like what does that look like, and some of that alignment, being able to activate beyond downtown all the way to the waterway, think about the parks and the greenways and the rivers, like what are the other ways to kind of animate that and bring that to life and create a great quality of life for the residents of this area. And, is there an opportunity to accelerate the Woods and Water District Plan, looking at the model of what Knoxville, Tennessee was able to do with the urban wilderness, and these other partners between Catawba River Keepers and Duke Energy and Friends of the Greenway, like how can collaboratively we all work to preserve our natural resources together. And developing a riverfront site that could be a shared community asset. We could go somewhere and be on our own, But wouldn't it be great if there's other, non-motorized sports, like paddle sports activities and other recreation opportunities that are all kind of coming together in one space? And we've got a passionate volunteer crew. We are all volunteer-run organization, like we said, other than our coaches, but looking at like how do we activate and animate those with other aligned partners with similar interests. And we just want to say thank you for the time to get to introduce ourselves, let you know a little bit about our organization. We'd love to, if you have any questions, answer those or connect at a time that's appropriate to do that.
Any questions?
No, thank you.
Anyone? No? Okay. Thank you, ladies, for being here.
Thank you all so much.
All right. All right, next under old business, discussion of Veterans Park RFQ selection, Mr. Greg Beal.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. So just a quick recap. As you know, RFQs were released in April for, RFPs, requests for proposals, which ended on June 28th with no submissions. We were able to have honest conversations with 4 very interested developers, some who had attended the pre-submittal meeting, and just asked them why they didn't submit. So some of the upfront design costs that we had required of the old Mecklenburg Brewery facility, where you had 3 competing firms, that was a challenge, as well as some other competing projects in the Charlotte region that they were a part of. So there were some concerns about various things. So we went back to council, staff did, and asked, an RFQ requires not a lot of homework. It's essentially a resume of key principles, some past projects. It's much less cost to put together. So went out for 58 days, almost 60 days was our target date, but to keep things moving, because there's properties under contract, they ended on October 11th. We had 1 firm submit. We'd met this firm previously, staff did, came away pretty impressed. They did submit by the 4 p.m. deadline. The name is North State Development. They've worked on projects throughout the region, Belmont, Huntersville, Chapel Hill. They have a very good group that we met on Tuesday. City Manager Blanton, Assistant City Manager DuPont, Economic Development Director Matt Black, and I sat down. So at this point, given the information presented, given this is a very reputable firm in the Charlotte region, staff is making a recommendation to council that they be selected as the most qualified applicant for this project. That doesn't lock council into anything at this point. This begins their due diligence process, which the next step would involve them coming to council, likely at the November 18th meeting, to present a plan, because they haven't even put money into, they kind of have some ideas. They didn't want to share everything with us at the time, but they wanted to put something on paper to come back before council at the November 18th meeting. If you like what you see, certainly can move forward. If you don't, you certainly give direction on changing the plan. But that essentially begins the due diligence, working towards a development agreement that we'll have to have our city attorney work in. They gave a framework in their packet, as you can see on the last page, some things that could be a part of the development agreement. But, due diligence process, they're going to study, do soil testing, make sure the soils are suitable to support whatever project they propose. And talk about public-private partnerships and how that looks. And just, they may try to obtain more property. We know there's some property owners on East Central Avenue that the city did not go under contract with, so that was an interest to them. Trying to get more symmetry to the site. That was one of their key things in their packet, making the site more symmetrical. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, but that is staff's recommendation.
Any questions for Mr. Beal? Would council like to take action on this? Mr. Craig?
I'd like to move forward with staff's recommendation for North State to bring their, to present their proposal November 18th at the city council meeting.
Okay.
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Shoemaker. All in favor? We have The motion passes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. All right, number 2 on old business, discussion of refuse and recycling, Mr. Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the regular October meeting, staff presented 2 proposals for contracted solid waste and recycling pickup for the council's consideration. And over the last 2 weeks, Assistant City Manager DuPont, our Public Works Director Jason Green, and our Deputy Streets and Solid Waste Director David Jordan have done an excellent job compiling and reviewing this data to show the nuances of the 2 proposals that were presented for council's consideration, thorough analysis of the review of the cost to provide the services to our residents, and an overview of the impact to our current operations. So I certainly appreciate their efforts on that, and certainly at the conclusion of the proposal, we'll all be glad to answer any questions that council may have. But from the beginning of this process, the council has prioritized the importance of maintaining the current level excellent customer service that our department has built a reputation for having. Our solid waste team is consistently praised for their high level of attention to detail, and throughout this process, we have underscored the importance of maintaining the positive reputation of our department. The goal of this presentation is to demonstrate the current and potential roles, responsibilities of our solid waste staff, and to understand the costs and operations for the council to consider as we move forward with making a decision on this matter. First, it is important to note that currently our streets and solid waste team engage in bulk pickup, that being the large items that do not fit in the garbage can, yard waste, and leaf collections. The proposals, when we submitted the RFP, the RFQ, they did not include that. This was just picking up the garbage can once a week, dumping it, and moving forward. And in order to maintain that degree of service that I spoke to, the city would need to keep a crew to be employed to provide these services, irrelevant of the decision that is made. So currently, we have 11 staff members specifically designated for solid waste collection, and if the city were to contract out the service, staff would propose recategorizing these positions from maintenance positions such as a stormwater repair crew, cemetery maintenance, mowing assignments throughout the city's various maintenance-related activities these employees would engage in. To outsource, under the 2 proposals provided, cost would exceed over $1.6 million in the first contracted year, and this would be the cost of the overall contract, but the additional costs that I just spoke to, that being the yard waste, leaf pickup, bulk pickup, would not be included in these proposals, and those would be additional costs that the city would incur. So it's important to note the substantial differences between either of the proposals and what staff feels would be appropriate to budget to keep these services in-house. For example, it would cost twice as much for either proposal to contract out collection, and at the end of the 5-year period, as you can see, it would cost the city over $10 million to sustain these services and contracts, taking into consideration the high level of customer service that we strive to maintain and in order to ensure that we're providing the best service possible to our residents. The current solid waste only for the city is $7.10 a month, so all customers are billed $7.10 for that once a week garbage collection. This only covers approximately 52.3% of the overall cost, so a little more than half is being covered by this fee, with nearly 2 cents of the tax rate from the general fund covers the remainder. So about half of the costs are covered by the fee, the remainder is subsidized from the general fund tax rate. Previously, when coupled with recycling, those total costs amounted to $12.28 per month. Staff is proposing at this time a $15 monthly fee. This would cover 78.1% of the cost to provide this service, which would help offset that subsidy. A direction has previously been given by council to pursue the option of moving solid waste towards an enterprise fund, meaning that we would charge the actual amount to provide these services in order to be sustainable long term. With gradual increases over the next 8-year period, we would be able to do just that, and we feel as though this is achievable and certainly worth pursuing based on the direction of council. Unfortunately, based on the information that was provided by our private sector partners and the current trends amongst municipalities across North Carolina, we are not recommending re-implementing the curbside recycling program, and instead we would recommend partnering with our friends at Gaston County to explore additional recycling stations throughout Mount Holly and raise awareness of such options with those partnerships in Gaston County. I just want to end council by recognizing that I realize this is a difficult conversation, and want to apologize to council and the public for the deviations and any confusion with presenting these complex scenarios. It's been a long journey, particularly over the last 9-10 months, but I want to assure the council and the public that the City of Mount Holly is committed to ensuring that we provide top-notch customer service to our residents, and I'm recommended that we keep solid waste collection in-house with the utmost confidence that this is the most reasonable and the most cost-effective solution to maintain the current levels of service. So council will be glad to answer any questions, such as Assistant City Manager DuPont, Public Works Director Mr. Jordan's here tonight. So anything that you guys may have for us, we stand ready to answer and address.
Any questions from council? Ms. Shoemaker?
I have all the questions. First off, so do we think that staff is under the assumption that, or is under the working knowledge that 11 people is adequate to handle all of the solid waste? So there's not going to be any additional hires or change?
That is right, Ms. Shoemaker. Currently, or previously, we had 9 positions that were undertaking solid waste collection, and they were strained. Several positions had been frozen in the previous year budget under the understanding that we were hoping to be able to find a way to make sense of contracting out. Since July, we've filled those remaining positions, so at 11, we feel confident that we'll be able to continue to sustain these services, at least in the foreseeable future.
There were some concerns that were brought up at our strategic planning meeting back in, what was that, February, whatever, about the cost of, like, capital costs for additional trucks, and a lot of the trucks seemed like they were at the end of life.
Right.
They would have to be replaced, and they were not inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the projection, like, what are we looking at there?
Sure. And that is very true. We are having significant difficulty with our capital in that department. And I don't recall off, but how many trucks would you say that we need to replace immediately, David, Jason? One every year. We're looking at these proposals that this would replace one each year, paying for it outright. We certainly can look at funding options. The council wanted to look at what it would cost to finance these over a set period of time, but these numbers that we have compiled do take into consideration that we would be replacing one truck each year over that 5-year period.
Mr. Craig?
As far as the blue can goes, if we discontinue recycling, could we use that blue can for yard waste and things of that nature instead of picking it up, or how would we go about that?
Sure, absolutely. Councilman Craig, I think that would be the most practical use of those bins would be for yard waste, to be able to use those cans for things that may not necessarily fit in, or that may not necessarily go inside the garbage can. So at council's direction, we would be prepared to start an awareness campaign that those the second can could be used for yard waste, or we could look at the possibility of rounding all of those cans off, surplusing them to someone that may need them. But I think that staff would recommend the most practical use of those cans would be for yard waste to be collected at a time prescribed by the council.
Mr. Craig?
Also, so as far as a second trash can goes, because I know me and my wife, we got a second can 2 or 3 years ago, and it's helped us out tremendously, especially after we discontinued or suspended recycle. And so how much would that be? Would that be the same price as like the 710, I guess, or would that be a different price?
Sure, we can bring back proposals for the fee schedule to take into consideration a revised rate for the one can, and then look at an additional cost that can be set by the council in regard to a second can.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Shoemaker?
I can already hear everyone that I go to church with and what they're going to say to me, which is, so we discontinued recycling and we kept the price the same as we promised, and we come back with a new quote and say, we're keeping this in-house, we're not outsourcing it, we're not bringing back recycling, but we're doubling the price.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like that's going to go over really well. I mean, how's that? I mean, I understand why, because we have been subsidizing it all this time, but I mean, like, the optics on that do not look great without significant explanation. And how do we explain that, I guess, is my question. Like, how do we explain that? Why are we doubling the price of trash pickup when we've taken away something?
Let's let Mr. Blanton answer
Yeah,
that question.
I can speak to that, and I certainly appreciate that, Ms. Shoemaker. And one of the ideas that we discussed internally was moving forward with a study to see what it would look like towards gradually implementing this towards a enterprise fund. These are just rough numbers that we put together to show what this would look like over an 8-year period, because it is tough and a difficult situation to be put in, because it would be just that, doubling these fees, because it's been subsidized in the general fund for quite some time now. $7.10 per month, as I said, only covers a little more than half the cost. So it may be advantageous to stop, look at getting proposals on what an overall comprehensive fee study would be, and then move forward with that over the next few months as we eventually adopt a study that would help eliminate the amount that we are subsidizing out of the general fund.
Mr. Reeves?
I guess my question, how much did you say the tax rate was for subsidizing it?
It's nearly 2 cents currently.
Okay, if we went to the $15, would we reduce in the 2 cents? Is that something that we could look at?
That is certainly something that we could look at, what that actually looks like, dollars, pennies on the tax rate, taking into consideration if we increase the overall rate for monthly solid waste collection.
Mr. Huff?
Mr. Mayor, I have two questions. How much is a garbage truck?
I know we looked at prices right off the top,
3 to 4.
$300,000 to $400,000.
So $350,000 is a garbage truck. Okay. We are already set a tax rate that is subsidizing our residents now. We can't change the property tax rate during the year. So why would we change the amount we're charging for garbage collection now rather than when we set the budget next year?
And we can certainly do that, Councilman Huff. I think that the overall spirit of this presentation was to show what it would actually cost as we inch towards a overall enterprise fund, but certainly the budget was taken into consideration that we would be subsidizing that 2 cents, and like you said, spot on, that we would not be able to do anything about that until fiscal year 2026.
Right, and I think when you've taken away recycling, which obviously was important to people, but you mentioned there are reasons why recycling may not be what people think. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
Sure. Most recently, the town of McAdenville discontinued their recycling program. The city of Gastonia did that several years back, as well as the city of Kings Mountain. Unfortunately, the cost to provide recycling services is quite expensive. There isn't a market that was once there for it. If the items that are placed in the recycling bin are even slightly contaminated, they're going directly to the landfill as well. So a lot of the items that people feel are being recycled are actually going to the landfill for a number of reasons. The market, the fact that it's not advantageous for some of these larger companies to provide recycling services, and that was reflected in the proposals that we received regarding what it would cost for biweekly recycling pickup.
Ms. Shoemaker?
Have we actually investigated how realistic it is to hope that there'd be additional recycling centers opened up somewhere in the city?
Sure. We met with Gaston County a few months back. They talked about different partnerships that could be utilized with putting additional smaller sites throughout the city. Mr. Green brought to my attention last week that there was a campaign by some of the local schools to be able to put recycling centers at the local schools where some of the students could participate, engage in that. We've certainly had some offers from our friends in the private sector to be able to put certain recycling places, cardboard recycling places, on private property here in Mount Holly. So we've explored those options, and at council's direction, we can certainly revisit those conversations with the county and look at potential partnerships with some of our friends in the private sector to see what that would look like, to have some smaller temporary spots for certain things that are pretty popular to be recyclable, some of the aluminum, cardboard, and things such as that.
Ms. Shoemaker?
Who's currently doing the pickup? The solid waste pickup?
Solid waste pickup is currently being handled in-house.
Okay. I just wanted to make that
Sure.
clear for everybody. And so one of the concerns that was also brought up back in February was that hiring people for solid waste could be difficult. And it sounds like we've actually increased staff. So they've actually hired some people for those positions. Are we identifying any issues with hiring or maintaining staff in that department?
Currently, we're fully staffed. Some of those positions were put on hold because we were waiting to see if we were going to be moving forward with contracting out. But currently, we are fully staffed, and as far as I know, there are no known concerns, complaints, or any type of grievances that have been filed regarding to the hiring of the position. We were able to reach full staff pretty quickly upon unfreezing those positions to move forward with keeping this in-house for the fiscal year.
Mr. Huff?
So, Mr. Mayor, what type of direction does staff need? Because if we're not really changing anything, if we don't change the rate now, we keep it in-house, everything is status quo, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Councilman Huff.
Okay. I don't know how the council feels, I can make a motion or what have you.
Because I
There may
think,
be something
for the
other.
most part, this was for discussion, but if we need to make a motion, and, you know, the attorney and city manager can guide me on that if we need to move forward with that.
I think there was another question,
Well,
Mr.
no, I
Mayor.
was actually just, I was gonna say, I don't know if you need a motion or not, but, well, let's answer that question first.
Sure. I would just advise, Marie, please jump in if need be. I would advise no action would mean that we continue as is with the current rates, with the way that we are currently collecting solid waste. That would be in-house at the direction that council gave June, July. So no action from the council tonight would essentially be action to keep as we are.
Okay.
Mr. Huff?
And just one additional question. I wanted Councilman Craig brought up the additional can. I need additional can. There are probably others that need additional cans. So when we stop the recycling, we've got 4 or 5 bags out there beside our trash can every time. So that's an important piece, because I think we're probably not the only ones affected by that. So if we can get some information on that, on how to get, I know Mr. Clark does an amazing job, and that staff, if you called the city and said, I need a can, now I hate to say that, now I put Mr. Clark on the spot, but
He does a good job.
he doesn't mind, do you? He's great, he's phenomenal. So we're lucky to have him. But I would say that's pretty important, to get that information out.
And I also think, you know, along those same lines, you know, we've got the blue can, we've got the green can, do we need 3 cans? You know, that's something that, you know, Mr. Green, maybe he and Mr. Clark can talk about. If it is for yard waste, or there's just both of them for garbage, you know. We've got the cans in-house, we've already bought them. So that's something that we just need to look at and figure out instead of doing something different with that. Mr. Craig?
Well, that was gonna be my last question, about the blue cans, because I was first thinking with the price doubling to $15 essentially, with the green cans, could the city of Mount Holly try to kinda look into covering the cost of a second green can? But then I came to think about the blue can, like, can we not just use that for miscellaneous and look and see what that looks like? I mean, it's already out there. It's
I think
already
we
paid
just
for.
use it as garbage and move on. You got 2 cans.
If you've got a can
agree.
out there, people are gonna put garbage. They're
That
gonna put
makes- that
anything
makes
and
sense.
everything in.
The yard waste thing seems to be working fine now.
I was
Mr.
gonna
Reeves?
say the same thing. Why don't we just use the blue can for trash for the time being? Because we're gonna just stay the same way we are. We've already got it. It's already there. Let's just move
Okay,
forward
not.
and say,
Okay.
okay, that's a second trash can. I mean, I don't know what that looks like, but
And with us losing, you know, recycling, there's always gonna be more trash now, so.
like,
Does that work now, to use it for trash?
I mean, is that something we can?
Say yes.
We got a nod from the back.
Yeah, and we
I
can,
I looked at the back and I'm like this.
Yeah.
yeah.
Tommy Fuller said yes, so I'm good.
Okay, so I'm good. As long as he says he's good, I'm good.
All right. Anything else on that, Ms. Shoemaker?
I would like to just lobby on the behalf of I mean, my trash hasn't actually increased because I'm recycling everything, but it's a lot harder. And the wait lines up at the recycling center are kind of brutal some days. So, I mean, I would love to see us have a little bit more, making it just a little bit more accessible for those of us that are still trying to recycle. You know, I mean, some people may not want to have to rinse everything and do everything, but they might recycle all their Amazon boxes. If we had easy access to cardboard or things like that. If there was a full recycling center, like the Riverbend, like down further south, I mean, I know the land's a little bit more difficult, but, I mean, I would love to not have to drive like 20 minutes to go drop the stuff off and come back, but.
And I go every 2 weeks to the recycling center, and people that actually do that are very passionate. They do it right.
My family makes fun of me.
Right.
Because I'm
So-
washing all the jars.
But
They're like,
yeah,
"What's wrong?"
I'm sure we can continue to look into that.
Sure, we can, and we've had some of our friends downtown that have offered potential sites for that. And
For
that-
cardboard.
For cardboard, if we were able to get a contractor on the spot, hope to be able to help us with that. And certainly, we can talk again with Gaston County Schools to see what type of option, or Gaston County about potential partnerships with the schools for those places.
All right, we're good on that?
You're good?
All right, moving forward to new business. I'm
real
sorry,
quick.
Mr. Craig.
Do we need to put something out there publicly, or as far as the blue can goes? Because that's definitely information if we're gonna be agreeing that
we do
tonight
the
to
vote
put
on
that out
that.
there. Because we said no to begin with, and so
Yeah.
definitely want to make sure that people get that memo
Yeah, I would.
on the blue cans.
So the possibility would be if you want an additional can, you can utilize your blue can for the cost of what a second can would be. Is that what we're looking at?
No,
No, not at
No.
cost
no,
at
there's
all.
no cost. Everybody already has a blue
Wharf, they already
can.
have it.
So 2 cans at the $7.10 per
then-
rate.
But
Then at our next
usually,
budget.
if you have 2 cans, you pay more though. Is that not correct? I mean,
Right.
like, you
2
pay
green cans.
Two green
Yeah,
cans,
if you have 1 green can, you pay $7. If you have 2 green cans, you pay, let's extrapolate and say 14. I don't know what the answer to that is, if it's exactly the same amount. So like, if people wanted to put out their second can, but how would you track that? Like, I'm not
You-
gonna put out my second can.
You don't charge them anything.
Okay.
If a blue can is out there, it's trash.
Yeah, they pick it up.
It gets picked up like the green can, okay? If a blue can needs to be replaced, I'd say you replace it with a green can.
And then you pay for it.
No, I mean,
Until we, yeah.
until we discuss it more, I wouldn't charge anybody anything right now if we have it in stock. We don't charge to replace green cans now. Why would we put that cost on them then?
Well, we're not talking about like the physical can. I'm talking about like it costs the city to dump, it costs more to dump 2 cans than it does to dump 1 can. Cause if everybody in the city decided to start using 2 cans, then we would have twice the tipping fees, we'd have twice the number of runs. So I mean, it seems like there's a cost inherently involved to the extra amount of waste. And I'm not disagreeing with you that like perhaps for the time being, we let it go, because how in the world are you gonna track that? I don't even know how you do that.
Well, I think you track it through the numbers, and when we go to next year, we track it there. I'm not gonna have any more trash with 2 cans than I have with 1 can. I'm just not gonna have my trash piled up
It'll be in the
next to a
yard.
can. I mean, I'm gonna have the same amount of garbage. I'm not gonna produce more, so I have more can to fill. I have garbage. I have this same amount of garbage, right? So all I'm saying is we use the assets we have. They're already out there. It makes more sense than going out and giving everybody a second can, charging them $7 more a month. Let's go with what we have, and then when we have the proposal at the budget time, that's the right time to do it. And then we have data. If the tonnage went up, we can look at that and we can say, hey, it went up. But, maybe from another perspective, we might learn that by having 1 can, people are forced to do more recycling. That's possible. It's a mindset. If you want to recycle, I challenge you're going to recycle, and you're going to do what you need to do it. So, that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
And if the experts, if David Clark and the staff came back and said, hey, here's something to consider with that, sure. I mean, they're the ones that know. We're making an assumption right now that this works with a nod from the audience, If we get different information, that's fine. I just want to see Jonathan on the Mount Holly mat. He gets up there and videos something with 2 cans, and he's got on his suit. It's got one side green and one side blue.
I'm actually hoping it matches the
He'll have
trash
a-
cans.
I think he's got one. He's got to have one.
Just mix and match the pants and the
He'll,
shirt.
he'll order yellow cans, so.
Yeah.
But back to Mr. Craig's point, yeah, we need to put that out there, that information out there for sure. So, and then, of course, get with staff to figure out how this is all going to work, but it's all going to come down to budget, next year, once we go into that.
Can I speak to Ms. Shoemaker's concern?
Yes.
We certainly can make this happen, and we certainly can encourage and advertise that for the time being, residents can use their green and their blue can for garbage collection. The major issue that I see is those customers that are paying for a second additional pickup on their bill. That would be the most challenging aspect of this, would be those customers that are paying that extra fee each month for that second can, and now they would be getting, in reality, I suppose, 3 cans, and everyone else would be getting 2.
So if I don't want to pay it, I'll turn in a can. right?
They could
I
turn
mean,
the
that
green
seems
can
pretty
back in.
reasonable, and we turn into blue can. You know what I mean? And that way, if you're picking up a can, all right, I don't want 3, I just want 2. Cool.
Yeah, I
Then
mean,
we're gonna take it off your bill, and here's your can, and
I'm
move
in
on
that,
down the
I'm in
road.
that predicament myself right now, if you want to call it that. So I
Right.
have the 2 green and 1 blue, and so I mean, right now, I mean, I might use 3, and I might just keep paying for the 2, you know, and so it just depends.
I'm concerned on the behalf of staff about the complexity of walking that back. Like, if we say everyone can just use whatever can you want, we're just gonna pick it up for free, essentially, like, it's no big deal. But when it comes time that we actually are revisiting this and looking at the budget and like the costs, and all of a sudden you have to pay for 2 cans and not 1 can, and you have to do, I mean, your blue bin's no longer gonna be just an extra green bin, and all this stuff come next July 1st. I'm a little bit worried, and like, I honestly wanna give staff the opportunity, like, our wish here is to make this as seamless as possible. And if that means that letting people know that for the next 6 months or whatever, that they can use their blue bin temporarily or something like that, like, I'm not saying no to that, but I would like to give them the opportunity to kind of strategize this a little, rather than us just like shooting from the hip and giving them directive that is potentially gonna make it way harder when it comes time that we're saying, oh, and by the way, we're increasing the cost, and you have to give back that blue bin, and you have to get a new green bin, and you're gonna have to start paying double, and like, I feel like that's gonna be traumatic for, like, people are gonna get whiplash come next summer when we're transitioning and we're looking at, like, maybe we're reducing the tax rate by 2 cents and everyone's excited, but we're also increasing their water bill because the trash pickup's more expensive. So it's, I mean, yes to all of it, but I'd like to give staff the opportunity to just, like, maybe think about it. I mean, we've made a decision to not change anything. So as to like a release of information about what to do with your green bin and the pickup and stuff, I think that maybe we just give them a chance to discuss it before, I don't know if I'm the only person that feels that way. I just feel like people are gonna get whiplash if we say you can use them both as green bins at no fee, and then,
I think some people are already using the blue
Yeah.
bin.
yeah.
Are they?
He
Yeah.
said yes.
He said, yeah. I knew they were.
Yeah.
Since the
But not
beginning.
everyone, but
okay,
not
so-
everyone is, and when we turn that around and say, you can't do that anymore, and you have to pay for 2 and all that, I'm just a little bit concerned about the whiplash for people, but.
Well, and I,
I mean, people are
you know,
usually
I understand
doing
your
it anyway.
concerns, and I think with staff and with our department heads, we can figure all that out, but, you know, we need to catch our breath on this a little bit, like you said, instead of shooting from the hip, get a plan, and then kind of go from there, but hopefully that will happen soon.
For the time being, would council feel comfortable continuing as is and revisiting this issue on November 18th with a plan on the blue can, what a second pickup would look like, and those customers that would be affected because they would essentially have 3 cans?
Is everyone good with that?
Yeah, and then we can just make the announcement at that point, like, once we have like
Yeah.
a less just us talking
Sure,
kind of
okay.
plan.
All right.
Not trash talk.
Please don't.
You have your marching orders on that, Mr. Blanton?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, unless there's any.
All right.
So essentially, nothing happened just now.
We just talked for 20
I-
minutes.
I-
You
Nothing
are
happened.
correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Nothing
I
happened.
think that you gave direction to your city manager
Right.
to no longer pursue these 2 companies.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
All right, so we're moving on after doing nothing. So, all right, new business, we've got the Riverbend Access Cost Benefit Discussion, Mr. Jusko.
I can keep it off. And Mr. Mayor, I'll kick this off, and then Mr. Jusko can add any additional information that council may have, and we can discuss this issue. Council, at council's direction, the city provided a non-binding letter of commitment to Duke Energy on September 23rd. This would be for a potential long-term lease of the Riverbend area access. Per the letter, the city would need to reach a binding agreement with Duke by the end of 2024. To recap, Duke is undertaking upgrades to approximately 68 acres of lakefront property off Highway 16 at the Mountain Island Lake. The eventual upgrades to the access area will include a swim beach, trails, bank fishing, fishing pier, parking, and restroom facilities. At the September work session, council requested that staff evaluate the long-term cost to service this area and how other Duke property sites are being managed. Staff reached out to numerous entities. Mr. Jusko spoke directly with York County Parks and Recreation, Gaston County, to evaluate how they each manage similar size sites for Duke. Based on this information and internal discussion, staff made the following determinations. First, there would be a need for 3 full-time positions and 4 part-time positions from a personnel standpoint for the facility. This would total approximately $242,484 at the end of a 3-year period. Second, a total of approximately $127,000 would be needed in initial startup costs for vehicles, field scraping, and amenities to be installed. And third, if a $7 per car fee was levied, the city could offset costs by approximately $74,200 during the first year. As you can see, over a 3-year period, the cost to serve this area by the city would be approximately $174,603. This would include a 10% annual increase in fees assessed and the expenses incurred by the city. It's important to note that this is approximately a $5 million investment by Duke, and that Duke currently has 187 recreational sites across North and South Carolina. Of the 187 sites, 38 of those are leased to a county, city, or state agency. The city provided numerous questions and input on this proposed partnership in August to Duke. The primary underlying issue was water and sewer access for the site. The current plans presented by Duke is to provide for vault toilets at the facility and no additional sewer access. At minimum, water would be required, council, for fire protection at an additional cost of $306,625. Requiring sewer availability to that area would result in an additional roughly $1.1 million in cost, and Duke feels as though the vault toilets utilized in other areas would be sufficient. This, of course, would be at council's direction regarding the direction to continue with these conversations and how you would like staff to tailor these conversations moving forward. So myself, Mr. Jusko, Mr. DuPont, glad to answer any questions that the council may have this evening.
Questions? Mr. Huff?
So the options are, the city do it or the county does it. One way or another, it's happening.
Yes, Duke is building the facility, yes.
Okay, so the decision really is, who do you want controlling that access in the city? That's the question before the council. It's gonna have a cost. One thing I believe you've talked to the county officials. Have you talked to the county at all?
I know you spoke with Gaston County Parks and Rec regarding their management of the Belmont site, right?
Yes, just to get some information.
Only about their experience with South Point that they're gonna take over?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So would it be advisable or in discussion to say, okay, county, we can turn this down, it's all on you? Or county, you can participate with us and help us with the cost and management of this so that Mount Holly's not doing it all on its own and county's not doing it all on its own. Do you really want to carry this? Because one way or another, somebody's paying for it. So if we're paying county taxes, and technically, is it in the county?
Yes.
Technically in the county, it's not even in the city. Then why isn't the county participating in the cost of running this facility? That would be my question.
And the other thought on that is, I think there's a possibility if the county actually took it over, we could still take it over down the road. Was that mentioned? You know, if they started and then, you know, down the road, if we wanted to take it over, we could do that. I think that was mentioned.
It could likely be a possibility. I know Duke is looking for a lease to be entered into by the end of the year. So it would just be a matter of the term that they would be entering into. But I would imagine that if the county did indeed take over the facility, that there would be an appetite later on for Mount Holly to assume that lease or to enter into a new lease if that was the will of the council.
Ms. Harris?
Do we know for sure that the county's gonna take it over if we don't take it over? I mean, is that a positive thing?
I do not know that yet.
We don't know.
So, Mr. Jusko, how many other municipalities, I know these is throughout the North and South Carolina, actually are maintaining these these recreational areas?
I think there are 6.
Six throughout 100 and, what did you say, 80?
187.
187?
Yes.
Hold on. Can I clarify, what does 187 mean?
That's all the parks that Duke owns in North and South Carolina. They maintain 150 of those parks, is that right? Mr. DuPont?
38 that they have leases with, and municipalities of that are the handful or so,
The
the
six.
6.
So, just so what you're saying is that 150 of the 180 are just run by Duke? And really, like, these numbers, I mean, essentially, we're looking at a property that is $160,000 loss per year after a rather substantial capital input of, I mean, just a lot. I mean, like,
Over $5
a
million,
lot.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous capital outlay just to get started, and then we're looking at $160,000 loss on this per year.
And of course, we're still gonna be, our police is gonna take care of it, our fire, first responders are gonna be there, even though it's not in our city, but they're gonna call Mount Holly. Mr. Huff?
My biggest issue with Duke, and I'd say wildlife, is they always come back and say, well, you have to charge a reasonable fee. Well, you know, we used to pay $8 an hour, now we pay $15 an hour, right? I mean, costs have gone up everywhere. How can you say $7 is a reasonable fee? We're talking about charging our own residents $15 to pick up garbage. You know, if you want to go enjoy the lake, we should, and we're responsible for it. We should decide what's reasonable because we're the ones paying for it. And when I say we, our citizens. So I think it's a great amenity. I think it's phenomenal for Mount Holly. I think it's great for the area. It is absolutely needed. But we should be able to determine what it costs for us to run that. Okay? And I think the county should participate. And then, you know, just because they want something by the end of the year, I want a lot. Santa Claus is coming, but it may not deliver this. You know, they're asking a lot of us. I think they can wait till after the end of the year to figure it out.
Well, you know, just some of these things in here, like a water tank, you know, Duke should provide that. Dog bag stations, Duke should provide that. You know, there's stuff that the city, you know, it's their park, it's their $5 million, you know, they should provide some of these things that we're looking at having to pay for. You know, there's insurance, because there's no lifeguard because it's 5 feet or less, but still, it just keeps adding up. And, you know, it's our citizens' money. So we've got to somehow pay for that or let the county do it. I mean, it's one way or the other. Ms. Shoemaker?
I think that the problem with this is that it's going to be Mount Holly's park, whether Mount Holly owns it or not.
Sure.
And if it's poorly run and poorly maintained, because, like, our Parks and Rec will maintain it, and we know they will, and it'll be nice, and it'll be taken care of. If somebody else has got it, I don't want to say anything negative about Duke or the county or anyone, but if somebody else is managing it and it's not managed well, we're going to hear about it because it's Mount Holly's park, right? And we can turn around and say, no, it's not our park, but it's in Mount Holly, so it's a reflection of Mount Holly. So I hate the expense of this. Like, but I mean, downstream, like we said, like the police and the fire are going to need access to this. We're going to have ties to this constantly. I'm sort of ambivalent, to be honest. Like, I mean, there's a part of me that can completely understand how this is going to be a negative impact to us if we don't have control over it. But I also am really struggling to stomach the cost of this.
It's going to be a negative impact either way. Right. Mr. Craig?
I think we need to have a conversation with the county and see where their head's at and about the expense part of it. The management part, of course, like has been stated before, I think it would do well for Mount Holly to be #1 overall for the management purposes because of where it is. But at the same time, the expense-wise, if Gaston County is or was going to take it over immediately, if we said no, then, I mean, that's enough to try to partner with them, I feel like.
Right.
So I think a conversation with them would definitely be good for us.
Sure. And I'm with Mr. Huff. I mean, it's great. I'm all about recreation. It'd be a great amenity, great for our community, and, you know, it's just, we're just very fortunate to even have this opportunity. But we've just got to do it right. Mr. Reeves?
I'm kind of siding with getting the county, can the staff go back and say, okay, Duke, we want you to pay for this stuff because you're building this park. You know, like you said, the dog things, the bags and that stuff, you know, and then have the conversation with the county, like Mr. Huff and Mr. Craig said, let's have that conversation and see if we can get some kind of partnership. Because I'm kind of leaning, like Ms. Shoemaker, it's going to be an impact either way. But I would rather us have some control over some of that impact, is what I'm saying, rather than just throwing it out there and then it becoming an eyesore for Mount Holly because we're not managing it. I mean, there's a lot to this, and so.
Ms. Harris?
How long has the county had the one in Belmont?
I believe they started managing it earlier this spring.
So have there been problems with that?
Not even a full year, not yet, but they have not started charging. I think they're going to start charging this coming spring.
Oh, okay.
And there's got to be a reason there's only 6 municipalities throughout the
Yep.
whole system that are taking this on. And that's something that we can maybe look into a little bit more and get a little bit more information on that. Ms. Harris?
What I don't understand is why Duke thinks we should pay for this, like they don't have the money to pay for this.
Ms. Shoemaker?
Two things. First is, you know, I was just saying, like, the negative impact to, like, to the image of the city. What about, like, not that I didn't think about them, but, like, we have a lot of citizens that are going to be really negatively impacted if this is not managed well, and the importance of this being controlled for, you know, our friends up there and the communities up there. But secondly, like if we charge, or if we're allowed to charge $9 or $10 a carload, then all of a sudden it's a slightly, I mean, it's not breaking even, but it's a slightly different conversation. So I feel like Duke needs to be able to answer the question of what is reasonable, because 10's reasonable, 12, I mean, really 15's reasonable. That almost covers the cost, almost. So, I mean, it gets closer to where it needs to be. So if 7 is the only thing that's reasonable, then that makes it kind of unreasonable to pick up the property.
Mr. Huff?
Well, there's 10,600 a year based on the number we were given. So that's 100,000 if you have $10, right? 150,000 if you have 15. Still doesn't cover the cost.
No, but it's closer.
It's closer, but it still doesn't cover the cost. And we, regardless of what happens, right? I just want to reiterate this. Fire, police, rescue, all of that is still going to continue. I mean, we're already doing that. We're going to continue to do that through mutual aid and other reasons, right? We have to have the availability to do that. All right, so that's going to continue regardless of what we do. Okay, so that expense is not an additional expense. It's already there and will continue to be. Right. But I think now is the time you go to Duke, you go to the county, and you state our concerns. Now is the time to negotiate. They're the ones required by their FERC permit to build it, not us. They're the ones that are put upon to do something, not us. So the gun is not at our head. All right? When you have walkaway power, it's pretty good. So we need to use that, and we need to negotiate and tell them what our concerns are. Be fair. Be fair to Duke. Duke impacts our lives a lot, right? We've seen that over the last couple months. So what I would say is now is the time. You go back, you have a conversation with Duke, you have a conversation with the county, then come back. And when we come to a decision and an agreement, we come to it. Deadline is not December 31st. It's whenever we come to an agreement for, this is a multi-year, I mean, 50-year agreement. This is not for the next 6 months, okay? So we're not going to rush this, is my opinion.
That we're gonna have to pay for.
And these numbers are based on 106 parking spaces, Memorial Day through Labor Day. And that's it. That's not the rest of the year, and that's if they're filled every single day to the max. So it's a lot of variables there. All right, any other thoughts on that? So we need to speak with Martha Wagner about this.
Sure. We can certainly continue conversations with Duke and Gaston, expressing the concerns of the city in the hope of being able to reach an eventual agreement.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jusko.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. City manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things tonight for the council and the public. First and foremost, we are looking forward to Monday, November 4th. We will be having a groundbreaking for OMB. That has certainly been a long time coming and a great collaboration between the City Council and OMB and a public-private partnership. That will be at 1 p.m. OMB is still on track to be open, hopefully by this time next year, but no later contractually than the end of next year, that being 2025. So if you're able, please join us on November 4th at 1 p.m. at the future OMB site near River Street Park. Looking forward to that for certain. Also, coming up, it's going to be 3 weeks before we get together again, so there are a few things that are going on. First, Mary Market will be here in the Grand Hall November 8th and 9th. Looking forward to celebrating our local businesses and a great collaboration effort hosted here on the 8th and 9th. City offices will be closed for Veterans Day on November the 11th, and there will be a Veterans Day program with the Mount Holly Historical Society at the First Presbyterian Church on November the 9th. So city offices will be closed on the 11th, but invite everyone in the public to join us at the Presbyterian Church as we honor our veterans. And as I alluded to, the next meeting of the council will be on Monday, November 18th. We will not be meeting on the second Monday. That will be the 11th. So we will be meeting only once in November, that being the 18th, and once for our regular meeting in December. That is all that I have tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Blanton. Okay, now we're going to go into closed session pursuant NCGS 143-318, 11A, 3, and 5. And I need a motion. Ms. Harris and Ms. Shoemaker, all in favor? We are now in closed session.